Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Glenn. I am a former Royal Navy aircraft engineering artificer. I started my career in 1991 and was one of the last classes to go through HMS Daedalus training. So what we have here is the Fleet Air Arms history of rotorcraft from 1944 up until the late 90s and 2000s. So we start with the Sikorski R4. This is a small flying model, the smallest flying model that I have, and it is completely scratch built. It's made from spare parts from other helicopters. The fuselage is designed on a computer and is 3D printed, and it is one of the hardest helicopters here to fly. For its size, it's quite heavy, weighs 3 kilos. And Sikorski R4 is the world's first production helicopter. They built nearly 200 of these helicopters during the Second World War. People believe that helicopters came after the Second World War, but they were actually used by the Royal Navy and the US Navy, the US Coast Guard and the US Army during the Second World War. This is a model of an aircraft that operated in Portsmouth from the old aerodrome, and it was used for liaison duty, so it would ferry people around pretty much like a glorified flying taxi. It can carry 2 people. This one's fitted with floats, although other ones have wheels, and it is fully amphibious, although the model sinks. We tried it. We did test it, but the model sinks. So we're hoping to build at some point a bigger one that may float. So the R4 was the very first production helicopter. What came after that in British service was the Westland WS-51 Dragonfly, built under license at Westland in Yeovil from a Sikorski design, which is pretty much how Westland helicopters operated up until the Sea King. They would buy the designs from Sikorski, take them and make them and improve on them. So the Sea King there, Westland have built and sold more Sea Kings than Sikorski. So Sikorski have got the ump a bit about that, so I can understand. So but progressing on with the Dragonfly, again, it's still early days. It's 1950s, early 50s helicopter. It's powered by I think it's a Lycoming radial engine. Not very powerful. They could barely get themselves off the ground, and there's no electronics in these in the full size ones. And these were used for search and rescue on aircraft carriers. This one with the VL on the side operated from Royal Naval Air Station at Yeovilton, so VL stands for Yeovil, and they would use that as a liaison and a rescue helicopter. With the early days of jets, the jet engines were quite unreliable, so you needed to have something to be able to go and pick up the aircrew when they landed where they shouldn't. Also on the decks of an aircraft carrier, during flying stations, one of these aircraft would always be hovering alongside the ship. So the most dangerous time to be on an aircraft carrier is during flight operations when aircraft are launching and recovering. Now, we always used to tell our pilots if they had any sense, they'd find the nearest available airfield and land there, and then we could go and have a jolly offshore. But they like to land on the ship. So in the earlier days of aviation on the carriers, before we had angled decks, so they'd be flying the jets straight down the middle of the ship and try and stop it in the middle somewhere, while at the front somebody was trying to take off. So as an aircraft takes off, if there's an engine failure on takeoff, which was very common in the 50s, because like in very early days of jet technology, the aircraft would ditch. The ship would try and turn so as not to run over the aircraft, because normally when they did ditch, they would literally just fall off the front. So you try and turn the ship to avoid the aircraft, and the helicopter would then go in and attempt to rescue the crew. So they early days of helicopters is basically search and rescue. Pretty much all they were good for. Now with the Dragonfly, has a crew of 2, and you can only fit 2 people inside. So the poor pilot who's just been picked up has to dangle from the winch until they get to the ship. So it could be very cold, particularly nice. So this model that we're moving on to here, this is the first production stage of a model. Okay, this is what is known as the blank, and then we will move this on so it's got a little bit more detail, but not too much, and we'll take a fiberglass mould from that. Now this is a model of a Hiller H-12, which was in Royal Navy service, was the HT2, and it's the first training helicopter, dedicated training helicopter that the Royal Navy had. Normally you just stick a pilot in a helicopter and say, off you go. But that was proving too dangerous, so now we've got a dual control helicopter that we can train aircrew the basics of helicopter flying. Again, it's a piston powered helicopter, and it would have had 2 rotor blades with the paddles flybar system for stabilisation. And these are in service up until about 1977, when they were replaced by the gas turbine powered Gazelle. This model here is of a Westland Whirlwind HAS Mark 7. And the HAS Mark 7 is the world's first dedicated anti-submarine helicopter. As ever with the Royal Navy, we're pretty much the first to do everything in aviation. And it's powered by a Leonidas Major radial engine that weighs in at 540 kilograms, so it's over half a tonne in weight, and generates 850 horsepower. Now if we compare that to the known engine, gas turbine engine that's in the Gazelle, in the Seeking, weighs 148 kilos and generates 1660 shaft horsepower. So this was the last helicopter in Royal Navy service that was powered by an internal combustion engine. Now the Whirlwind was used by the Royal Navy as an anti-submarine helicopter, commando assault and search and rescue. And they were in service with the Royal Navy up until the early 80s with the gas turbine version of the Whirlwind. This one's in anti-submarine colours from 1960, and it operated from HMS Hermes. The full-size model, this one is modelled on, crashed in the Bristol Channel in 1961. So the actual airframe was built in 1960, operated with 814 Naval Air Squadron on HMS Hermes for about a year before it crashed. Now, for anti-submarine operations, it had to work as a pair, because as I explained, the engine power, just what we have today compared to what they had back then, was just not enough. So one aircraft would carry the dipping sonar. You've all seen Sea Kings on the telly dropping the sonar down. Well, one of these could carry the sonar, and another one would carry a torpedo, and they'd work as a team. So the hunter would fly around looking for the submarine. When they found a submarine, the crewman would drop a marker flare out of the cargo door to show the killer where to drop his torpedo. And the idea was that if you drop the torpedo close enough to the detected submarine, the torpedo would find it on its own and hopefully kill it. So, one of my favourite aircraft. It took two years to build this model, and each rivet is done individually. Yeah, I was losing the will to live when I finished. So it's a nice one. It's electric powered, but it has a sound system in it. So when we're doing displays, we start it up, it goes through, and then the smoke unit that's also inside there chucks out a big plume of smoke. It's a very nice one to fly. Now we move on to this aircraft here, which is probably a little bit more familiar to people. It's a Bell AH-1W Sea Cobra. The Cobra was the world's first dedicated attack helicopter, which stemmed from a need to support troop carriers in the Vietnam War. Bell produced the Cobra as a private venture when the US Army were tendering to Sikorski and Lockheed for a dedicated attack helicopter, and Bell knocked on the door and said, "We've got this one ready to go." It's basically a Huey. You've all heard of a Huey?
Yeah.
Yeah, very famous type helicopter. It's based on the fuselage of the Huey, and it has so many common parts. It was just perfect for the Vietnam War because you could send them straight out and the spare parts were already there. They would work as pairs with a scout helicopter. So the scout helicopter would fly over the jungle low, trying to get the Vietnamese to shoot at them, and when they did, the Cobras, who were up high and couldn't be seen or heard, would dive in and attack. This one is US Marine Corps, which is why we've got it on display. It's a maritime aircraft, and under the Z variant now, the Viper are still in service today. So they've been in service since 1965. It's one of the world's most longest serving helicopters, and they're beautiful. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. And the fuselage here is a Westland Wasp Has Mark 1. They only made one mark of the Wasp, and the Wasp was the first helicopter designed to operate from the flight deck of a frigate. Powered by a Rolls-Royce Napier engine, and will have a 4-blade main rotor head. You'll see one on your travels. And the Wasp was great, although it wasn't. It's still 1960 here, so the engine, the gas turbine, wasn't as powerful as it could have been. And to carry a weapon, they would have to take the doors off. So if you see pictures of Wasp, particularly operating during the Falklands War, and you're wondering why it hasn't got a door, well, the reason it hasn't got a door is so it can carry weapons. 1982, our friends in Argentina decided that they were going to invade the Falkland Islands. The Wasp was literally about to be retired and be replaced by the Lynx, but the Navy didn't have enough Lynxes to put on each ship that was going down. So the Wasps went down, and they did incredibly well. Just off of South Georgia, operating off the back of HMS Endurance, 2 Wasps, supported by a Wessex from HMS Antrim. Antrim's helicopter spotted an Argentinian submarine on the surface. Didn't have any weapons. So 2 Wasps from HMS Endurance were launched, and they attacked the Santa Fe with AS-11 anti-tank missiles. They did enough damage to the submarine to prevent her from submerging. And she was then again attacked by Humphrey, which is the second Wessex helicopter on board HMS Antrim, who attacked the submarine with depth charges, causing more damage and forcing her into port in South Georgia. 6 hours later, Argentinian forces on South Georgia surrendered. So the Wasp is a very special aircraft, and it's the only aircraft in the world that's dedicated with attacking and crippling a submarine. There's been no submarine warfare since. So we move on to the Sea King. We're now up to 1970s. This is a Westland Sea King Has Mark 6, again another anti-submarine helicopter. The model is painted in the markings of 814 Naval Air Squadron. The tiger markings represent the fact that this model is modelled on a full-size model that's at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford, is a NATO Tiger. The NATO Tiger squadrons are basically a social group where squadrons from all around NATO will get together once a year. They paint their aircraft up to look like tigers, and 814's the Navy's NATO Tiger squadron, so we affectionately refer to them in the Navy as the Soggy Moggies. And I served with 801 squadron, on Sea Harriers on HMS Industrious with 814 Squadron, so yeah, we used to rip the head up. But they go all over the place. So this model in particular was built in about a month. It was built for HMS Collingwood. Their executive officer was leaving during COVID, and they wanted a Sea King fly past, could not get a Sea King. Unfortunately, my best mate happened to be in the commander's office and volunteered our services. So we built this model in a month. We found out what squadron he was on, and then built it. And then in the gym at HMS Collingwood on his leaving day, we did a flight past for him, which was quite good. Good fun. Okay, the larger model here on the end is a Lynx helicopter maritime attack Mark 8. It replaced the Wasp as a small ship's flight. It is far more capable than the Wasp, powered by twin GEM engines. Very fast helicopter, very manoeuvrable. It isn't really a dedicated anti-submarine helicopter, although it does have the ability to carry anti-submarine weapons. It's mainly an anti-ship platform, and it's used to extend the range and the power of a small ship. Example, in 1991, when we all piled off down to the Gulf to have a good time fighting Saddam Hussein, the Lynx and 4 frigates and destroyers of the Royal Navy are credited with pretty much annihilating the Iraqi Navy. Lynx, using sea-spear anti-ship missiles, destroyed or crippled over 21 Iraqi ships. For what it's designed to do, it's a very, very good helicopter. We've modelled the helicopter on 702 Naval Air Squadron and in the markings of the Black Cat's helicopter display team, and we fly it like it's a Black Cat as well. We throw it around, and she's done the last 3 years on the show circuit, and she's just starting to complain. And at the moment she's going into refit. Okay, we have special features on this model, and in the PID on the nose, which is where the passive infrared sensor for the models, we have a small camera, and we can transmit down to a screen on the ground to the crowd what the helicopter sees. We can release the torpedo, which then deploys its parachute, and then for the finale of the display, we let the depth charge go. Then it's held by the cargo hook underneath, separates, and we do a fly past with the white ensign before. Yeah, good models. And then the last but not least is the biggest model we have is the Westland Gazelle HT2, which replaced the Hiller as a training aircraft in the Royal Navy. Originally designed and built by Aerospatiale in France with the assistance of Westland. Westland built all the British military aircraft, while Aerospatiale built all the ones for France and anyone else who wanted them. The Gazelle is the first helicopter that doesn't have the traditional tail rotor. We've got on the back we have a fenestron, and it's basically a ducted fan on the back that takes from the tail rotors. The model is 1/4 scale, so it's 4 times smaller than the Gazelle that's on the tour down there. It's powered in exactly the same way by a small gas turbine engine. It generates 3,000 watts of power. When she takes off, we're getting 5 kilograms of forward thrust from the exhaust, which makes her very exciting to fly. She's the easiest model we have here to fly because of her size. Each of those blades is about 4 foot long, giving her a rotor diameter of 8 feet, and the fuselage is 8 foot long. So it's a nice model to fly. The teddy bear inside is the bravest teddy bear in the world because he flies for me, and that was given to us by the Fleet Air Arm Museum when we were talking about it and we needed a pilot for her. He sits in there all the time, and the kids love him. We call him Biggles Bear. Has anyone got any questions? Unfortunately,
No.
not this year. The plan is to fly some of them next year. The reason for it is we need to fill out. We were asked to do this at the last minute, and we have to fill out so many risk assessments, and then also with the Air 2 airfields quite close by, we need to get notifications to aviators put in place to let them know that we're flying from here.
Brilliant, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
But yeah, hand you back over to your tour guide, who will take you around the hangar. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You've actually learned most of it. It's just this is full scale. It's done your job for you now. Just be careful going in. Big step in it.
This layout is exactly the same as on an active station. So all the trainees, this sort of feeds them into their future life when they're not on board. The aircraft, they work on them, they'll do all sorts of things, but they're all time expired. It's got rid of pieces. So if we just take a wander down the ends, we start breaking the engine out.
Here 3 times a day, and then when you get to the airfield points, you spend about 3 weeks here, and then you do your QX, which is your qualifying examination. You see, like, you then have to carry out certain jobs. Yeah, what we do. You see, like, the training steps. When you do the work,
It's amazing, when you look at these on the aircraft, they don't seem very big. When you stand alongside them, they're pretty big. This is the tail rotor, right above you there, that's it actually fixed on. And effectively, this is the rudder. It's not a conventional airplane where you have a fin, and the back end of the fin moves and deflects the tail one side or the other, and you go around a corner. Without that facility, we've got to find another way, and we use these rotor blades connected to the pilot's rudder pedals. As he moves the rudder pedals, so one side will go positive, and the rotors will move and create lift. and lock the tail that way or that way, and that's the way you steer it. It's not quite like a fixed wing because it's pretty complex, but in principle is exactly the same. This is interesting. It's not recommended to fit this seat into a helicopter for obvious reasons. But it's in here because it's such a fantastic bit of kit. I think this is they're up to Mark 17. I mean, when I flew in an aircraft with this, it was Mark 4. That was a year or two ago. It's fantastic. You could, if this is an airplane, I can climb into that, tighten all my belts up. All I've got to do is pull that out, and then pull that. There'd be a bang and a whoosh, and I'd be up at about 1,000 feet. The pack with your parachute is thrown out effectively, and it very quickly fills, so you will land, hopefully not on the fire you just left, but fairly close to it. So that is how good the damn thing is. If you're doing Mach 0.1, you can come out the same way. The only thing then is you'll probably have problems with skin and what have you because of this turbulence. But I mean, this is the last thing you do on the aircraft. Your engine started possibly. You take that out, and you've got to hold it up to the ground crew so that he knows. And if he doesn't see it, he'll stand in front of the airplane until you're ready, which is a super safe thing. But great, Martin Baker, ejection seat, superb.
Ever use one?
No. All the aircraft I Jet Provost had an ejection seat, and I've flown in some aircraft with ejection seats, and I've been in it. But my first aircraft was the Shuttleton, and that didn't have an ejection seat. I then spent 8 years on Vulcans, and the two navigators didn't have ejection seats. Of course, we just prayed along. And then Nimrod. If we were in real trouble, I'd go down to the cabin and have a cup of tea. So, if you look at this, you can see it just bursting out up there. This is the top end. The rotor blades would be attached to this, and then you've got various other bits and pieces. These are all driving various rods, these things, which will allow you to move the blades and go. The big thing about it is, look at where it is, and then as we go down, just look how wide the aircraft is. So if you have a problem and you decide to go down into the water, if it's flat cam, yeah, just don't run about in the cabin. If it's like this, all that weight, this is really heavy, that high above means you will eventually tip over. Even though there's buoyancy on the pontoon, thingies there, if it hits the water, two great bags will inflate, but you're still very unstable. Yeah. So it's the alternative is to jump out. I don't know which is best, really. There we go. Now the other thing that various bits and pieces. Another balancing. This is, you can see here, this is coming down. If you just look in front of the radars, you just see the beginning of it seems like a tunnel. It comes all the way down, and that's it at the end, and then that one taps it. It rotates, and then the various other cable bits turn the blades, these things. So that's one of the two working elements of flying the aircraft. The other bits and pieces, if we come over here, this is just elements of the engine. There's the main intake, and that's the exhaust. or the jet pipes leading out of the aircraft. Just gives you an idea of size. But then there's the engine itself. The engines are quite high, so not only have you got the gearbox right at the top of the shaft, but the pilots and the engines, so it's very potentially quite unstable. This is the undercarriage. One of the big things about any helicopter, that especially this is quite a heavy part, you need a really good pneumatic system, because the take a ton down at some speed, and it has to be absorbed. And you'll see that on all of them here. There's another difference outside which we can have a look at. But you know, that's it. That's the undercarriage. It's strong. You know, compared to a lot of aircraft, that's quite a big unit, but it can have quite a lot of weight, and it does arrive with a bit of a bang. So that's it. Looking at other bits and pieces, right up top there, that's the radar. When we go out, if you look at the Sea King that's outside, it's got a smaller dome. They're all the same in here, and that is because it's a new radar, or it was new to the later Mark 6s, and it's much wider. And the effect on that is you get a much narrower radar beam. What good is that? Well, if you're using it and you've got a ship that you believe might be hostile or anything, when the radar sweeps through, the size of the blip on the screen relates to the width of the beam. So on the old ones, you might get a ship that long. On this, it would be about that size. Is that important? Well, you might be launching an air-to-surface missile. So you put lock your two things on the screen, and the center of that is the ship. And that is where you tell the missile to go. But is it the center? Is it the left-hand side? Is it the right-hand side? There's an error. And you can't get around it. It's a physical thing. So that's why we ended up with, okay, a little bit more drag, but you know, that improves the performance against surface targets and against coast. If you want to fix on radar, again, the bigger scanner will give you a much more accurate position. And yeah, anything else exciting on that? The one thing you've got to look at, you see, you've got these orange tapes. You'll find on all sorts of aircraft, sometimes it's like that, other times it's a sleeve, and it will have a red and white flag, because if you look at that, the height is quite nice for somebody's eyes. And especially on a ship, on a dark night when the wind's blowing and there's a bit of rain, visibility's not good, and you're in a hurry because you want to get down below. Walk into that, you've just ended your career. So, you know, we paint them all grey so they're not obvious, but for the safety of our own people, any objection, and aerials are the worst. We cover them or paint them in a bright colour. Okay, let's carry on. It's a bit of a repeat now, because there's not a lot of difference. Now you have the fun of getting out to the building again. We'll have a look at the I think you've got a really good chat from the modern method. Yes. This, you can see it in full span. It's an old road. And with most pinwheels, somewhere up front, you'll find one or two of these. It's a VHF radio aerial, and it's up here because it's directly under that lot. That would interfere with it. It probably stopped some inbound messages.
Yeah.
But a fairly basic helicopter. I mean, you look at this. I mean, it's quite nice, but this fairly low power by modern standards. So its arrival on deck generally is a bit exciting, and it arrives with a bit of velocity. So you need good suspension, and you can see that's pretty tough. And likewise at the back end. Also, because it's low powered, you want to get rid of any drag. So you don't cover this to make it look very smart and shiny, because you're just creating drag. Drag is fuel, fuel is time. And that's it. But other than that, you know, this is in lovely condition. It's quite an old bar. So there we go, that's it. And engine totally exposed. Again, we're not going to put extra metal covering it, because it only slows you down. Now we go on to something totally different. This is an RAF Harrier. The difference between Navy and RAF: Navy is orientated primarily for air defence, but it can do ground attack. This is purely ground attack, and it operates close to the troops and supports them. So range is generally not a big problem, and if it is, then you can carry drop fuel tanks. What we've got here is a 1,000-pound bomb. Now normally a 1,000-pound bomb in the good old days, you came over the target and let it go, and it would land somewhere near. But this is a laser head, and these move. So when you're operating with the army, if they've got something they want hit, then they'll put a laser gun on the target. That will pick up the returns, and it'll hold on to the laser. Not the laser, the laser's hot. So you deliver 1,000 pounds precisely to the target. Now, a 1,000-pound bomb is a big bomb. It looks like a 1,000-pound bomb that was got cheap because it hasn't got a back end. But actually, it's not entirely true, because it's hollow under there. If you want to go out practicing bombing and you've got one of these, that's fine. Very realistic, extremely expensive. So what we'll do is we'll fit 20 28-pounders, that size, with a similar profile to that, so you can attack as many times as you like, and it would be recorded, but normally with a camera. So that's just bomblets. The aircraft itself, I think everybody knows about the Harrier. The jetty flux out there, that swivels a bit. It's pointing down slightly because it's pretty hot. That's about 690, 700 degrees, and that's playing straight on the flaps. So it's not healthy. When you get up and you want to go fast, then you put it horizontal to the earth, and you'll get maximum thrust in the direction you want. This is certainly a place that would normally have a rubber cover with a flap on it, because it's important. You don't want insects to get in there because it will interfere. It's a Peter tube, but also you don't want someone's eye in there because that would affect the speedometer as well. Lots of little goodies on this, the ESM sensors and a laser there. So this is one of the last variants of the Harrier, and it's got all the good things on it. On the other side, a £1,000 bomb on the inboard pylon and a 500 on the outboard. So it's for its job, it's a cracking machine. You know, I mean, airplanes I've flown, I get in and in the case of the Shackleton, I came like 14 hours later. This, no, it wouldn't quite crack 14 hours. But then it doesn't need to, because it's up to the troops. So short range is a limitation, but you can also always put big tanks on. But of course you're losing a weapon. And if it's a really big tank, like one we'll see shortly, you've got a big problem about when you're using the fuel. That's fine, because you'll take it from both tanks. But if you have a problem and you have to drop it, do you drop a full large tank from the wing? Yeah, so it's problems. I think we had a pretty good chat about that in its model form. That's it in reality. It's probably 4 times bigger than the other one. But it's, from an aviator's point of view, it's great because, well, it's hard to find a better viewing platform than this. There's Perspex everywhere, so you've got cracking. So it's good to fly. It's a utility helicopter. It hasn't got many fancy bits on it, but it's great for carting people around. You can do recce on it. Certainly support the guys ashore, the Royal Marines, if they're there. Visually, it's excellent, and it's quite a performer in terms of speed and what have you. Now we've got to something a little more exciting. You had a very good explanation from the modelist. In reality, to look at the real thing, I think this is. But it's quite a lot of space in there, and she's quite powerful in terms of engines. So you can use that space. Some aircraft, the engines are too small, so you can't fill it up with stuff, otherwise it can get off the ground. This is a good performer, and it's fast, very fast. A very, very good rotor head. So it's a cracking bit of kit. It can carry a gun pack, or you can carry depth charges, you can carry anti-submarine torpedoes, and you can carry air-to-surface, albeit relatively small missiles, but you might be up against a relatively small ship, which has got weapons. That's it. It really is a cracking bit of kit, and it's got some good sensors on the bow, and you will see 2 radio aerials well clear of the rotor head. That is a nice little aeroplane, and it's got a lot of performance, but it sits happily on the back end of a frigate. So a small warship, this can extend its capability substantially, either by attack or by observation, and it's got a reasonable range. So it's a good all-round bit of kit. Now, you've probably been seeking to death, but the big thing is, look at the radar. Yeah, much smaller. So the actual radar head is probably about that size, as against nearly double. So the performance.
It's not a Seeking. This is Sikorski.
Is it?
This is the pattern aircraft.
Oh.
This is a rare one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there we go. It's you have seen that. Right, tornado. I spent involved and flying with the V-Force on the Vulcan for about 12-13 years. that replaced the Vulcan. We thought that we were going to put one under each wing and we just launch it near the target, but no. Yeah, it's the whole world had changed. Vulcan's Victors were in the days when we had them sitting on the end of the runways all over the country, and it was nuclear. But gradually the world's changed, and we have lots and lots of small wars. I mean, for example, any conflict that's been involved in, it's been able to do it quite easily. Flying around in a huge delta target at low level would not be a great idea, and I don't think I'd enjoy it. 55,000 feet, yes please. But, so when it came in, knackered old creatures like me poo-pooed it, it'll never catch on. But it has. It's been around for a little while, and it's been improved. In terms of weaponry, it's not too bad at all. This one's a bit odd because it's got a huge fuel tank. Now that's a prime example of the problem if you cannot get fuel out of one tank. You've probably got to throw it away, because look how close it is to the centre line. So if you've got that, you need one on the other side. So where do you put the weapons? But if you look underneath, there's a weapon rail. So you can either hang them on pylons or put them down there if the pylons are not available. Yeah. Oh, you're all tingly. And the other thing, of course, is it's got a gun. It's got a 27mm Mauser cannon. So that's pretty handy in both support, again, of troops, and also in self-defense. If you get jumped, I mean, all we had in the Vulcan was a problem because there was no self-defense. The fact that we would go high or we go very low, you know, you had many options. This one, if you get jumped, at least it's manoeuvrable. It's prone to get fighters. In all probability, the first thing you do, get rid of the wings, right, drop the fuel, and then it's extremely manoeuvrable. So it's a little aircraft, but it's done the job very well. And in fact, with a little bit of extra fuel, you can go quite a distance. And it does carry nuclear weapons, so it is a strike capable as well as attack.
Do things operate off carriers?
No. Well, it could operate. It could go off. It goes in front and straight down again. And some have a hook. Some aircraft, quite a few fighters have hooks, but it's purely to pick up a wire on a runway. It's because they may have a problem with brakes. If you put it down at the speed you would have to on an aircraft carrier, it would probably take the tail off, which is, yeah, a bit sad. So that's it. That's the Viking. I don't think there's anything on the other side. Yeah, it's got another big job. So that's it. And you can see, once again, this and some of the others, anything that's attached temporarily on the aircraft, on the ground, has got a flag. And obviously, it's will come out and take over the off. But before they go, the ground crew will do another check, because the engine's fabulous. There's a really good engine in this, but you take one a bit of plastic like that, or the other one, down the intake, and you've got a single engine aircraft. It doesn't take very much. So there we go. That's it. Aircraft. And between the two, I think we've covered most. Murder and real. Has anyone got any questions?
Have one.
Yep.
What's the little memorial as we came in and turned the corner there? It's a war memorial thing.
I don't know. You've got me there because it's a long time since I was walking here.
I'll have a look. I haven't got time to have a look.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Wonder what the answer is. There we go. Well, if you're all happy,
Yes.
have a safe journey home.
Thanks.
Excellent.